Hi, this is David Swanson. I'm very sorry to be missing the gathering of the United Front Against Austerity, which is a tremendously appropriate and useful and badly needed effort. But I'm delighted that you've permitted me to speak by video. So hi to all of you I already know, and hi to those of you I hope to know in the future. I'm here in a hotel in Chicago that back in 1968 had mad crowds outside because of the Democratic convention. I'm here for to cover a debate of the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th party candidates. We also, of course, had a big anti-NATO march outside this building a few months back. My few cents of advice to this movement that you're starting begin with the need to make it about policy and not about political party in any way, shape, or form, not about particular elected official or particular non-elected leader. It needs to be a movement about the policy, about opposition to austerity, and it needs to be, in a certain sense, pure and uncompromising. Not that we cannot accept compromises made by Congress members or compromises made by other people in power, but we need a movement that begins independently with a stand for exactly what we want and speaks truth unvarnished, so denounces the very idea of austerity, which is, of course, is a fraud. There is not a shortage of money. There's just an ever greater concentration of wealth in fewer and fewer hands. Imposing not austerity on the rest of us, but violating our rights, violating our human rights to a living wage and health care and education and housing and security, while performing the opposite of austerity, the most grotesque concentration of wealth and luxury among the oligarchs. So we need to speak that truth very, very plainly. I think we need to be willing to accept uncomfortably large coalitions when there are elements of this campaign or the campaign as a whole that appeal to other people that we disagree with on a whole wide range of other issues, and we need to work with them on this issue. I think, however, that we can probably build a very big movement of people we agree with on just about everything, especially if we're willing to include a movement that takes on the military-industrial complex. This is a huge weakness in terms of organizing in this country right now. We have civil rights groups that go after torture and assassination and warrantless spying, but not the military funding and the war preparation and the war mentality that creates these things. We have environmental groups that go after all the polluters and destroyers of our environment, except the #1 most destructive, biggest consumer of petroleum we've got, namely the U.S. military. And on down the line through every issue, anti-poverty groups, pro-education groups, you name it, nobody's willing to take on the #1 opponent, the place where we're dumping over half the money, the place that Obama bragged in the third presidential candidates debate between him and Mitt Romney that he had increased it every year. And not a single media outlet that's been lying for years about his supposed reductions in military spending corrected itself. Meanwhile, Mitt Romney, of course, wants to increase military spending further while cutting $400 billion a year out of God knows where, out of programs that he says we don't need. Well, of course, there is one program that we don't need. We need conversion from military spending to spending that actually supports our economy, not to mention all the other benefits of refraining from killing huge numbers of human beings and so forth. So we need to correct the pretense that military spending creates jobs. Military spending reduces jobs. Not because weapons jobs aren't real. We need to convert them to non-weapons jobs. But because spending the same number of dollars in just about any other area, green energy, infrastructure, education, produces more jobs. And even tax cuts for the non-Mitt Romneys among us produces more jobs. So we need to break through that pretense, and we need to create a movement that is anti-Wall Street, anti-oligarchy, and anti-military industrial complex. If we can't do that, we've got one hand tied behind our backs. I think we need to be sure to drop the obsession with electoral campaigning as a primary tool. It just isn't. We need to build a movement that brings both of the big parties and all the little parties and everybody else to us, rather than us running behind one of those alignments. I think we need to go after the sorts of tools that are misused for elections through this anti-democratic denial of automatic voter registration, so that thousands of people are running around making phone calls, knocking on doors, holding house parties to register voters. And then the day after the election, they don't keep knocking on doors for peace, for justice, for anti-austerity, all of which is far more popular than any of these candidates that anyone has heard of. Instead, they consider their work done. We need to reverse that. We need to start knocking on doors and making phone calls and holding house parties and organizing and educating and mobilizing and lobbying and protesting and interfering and interrupting and shaming and disrupting and blockading and sitting in and boycotting. We need to use the whole range of tools that are available to nonviolent activists and drop this pretense that if we aren't doing electoral campaigning, we aren't serious. This is the only way to be serious. So good luck with your work today. Please publicize it far and wide, including letting me know what I can do to help. And I look forward to joining you in nonviolent struggle.